It is always a challenge when it always used to work and suddenly it's just not going to for you when you have to share your screen. Okay, so let me talk about what I'm going to talk about today. And today, I would really like to talk about, given the topic of the seminar, um, I would like to talk about attitudinal learning in MOOCs, which are massive open online courses for social justice. Um, I am an associate professor of learning design and technology, and I'll talk briefly about what learning design is in a bit. But it mainly we mainly think about how to design learning experiences for effective and efficient learning. So with COVID and everything, obviously it has been been a big area. Like people have been reaching out to design better courses in different settings, and this is part of it. Massive open online courses. I will talk about it, but it has a lot of different potential. Some of you might have heard about it, some of you have not, but I would like to talk about MOOCs and attitudinal learning today. So the background is that I'm going to let you take some time, just a couple minutes, to go online and look at these different open online courses to promote change at a more global scale, and how researching these courses and their implementation have informed the design of effective attitudinal learning instruction. So it doesn't really matter where you go, but if you can go to one of these links, the first one is really talking about, what are MOOCs? So maybe you can, click on that. Um, Massive online, open online courses, MOOCs, are free online courses available for anybody to enroll. So you don't need anything to enroll in the class of MOOCs. It provides an affordable and flexible way to learn new skills. It it massive scale. In the beginning, they started from Harvard and Yale, MIT, to talk about computer sciences and physics, math, and things like that. Um, so millions of people around the world use MOOCs for a variety of different reasons, career development, professional development, just, self improvement. So MOOCs has really been a big different platform for a very easy and cheap way for everybody to learn some good content. So if you look at the list here, it shows other courses. MOOC.org, I think, believes is a website that edX.org has created. But basically, Coursera, edX, FutureLearn, all these websites are really, really big MOOC websites that offer a variety of different topics. So if you go down, if you are on the MOOCs.org site, please scroll down and you will see the different types of subjects that are offered, right? Business and management, computer science courses, data sciences, engineering, language, and humanities. So you just sign up with an email address, and they require you really nothing. So it's really interesting for you to just go in and try to look around and see what's in there for you. You will find all sorts of fun things that grab your attention, and it is very, very low, obviously low cost. And I can go into lots of different detail about how to use MOOCs and what kind of MOOCs are there, and how differently people use MOOCs. But that's a different story. So I'm not going to talk about all that. But it's a really, really fun platform for you to explore. So, do feel free to go through these different courses and see which platform is most suitable for you. I've used Coursera and edX a lot, and it has been a lot of fun for me. Okay, so more background. Apart from the typical technical and hard sciences that MOOCs first started, so really it was from these Ivy League courses where they're like, oh, we're gonna provide coding courses for free for everyone in the world, in which that was what had originated them. And some instructors are now, from a few years ago, are leveraging this platform to not just disseminate ways to code and do computer science, but also kind of create a dialogue in a global way and promote attitude and societal change. So, a lot of the really popular topics are, health, nutrition, fitness, global warming, things like that. And some of the cases that I've looked at was human trafficking or animal welfare. So MOOCs focus on social topics that include, lots of different goals, but the attitudinal learning goals result in a lot of different factors instead of just cognitive knowledge or skill making, right? So the learner's pre-existing attitudes and beliefs are also really important. How they deliver the material, the perspective they deliver the material, those are all very, very important key elements within the learning process. So, like I said, I am in the program that's called Learning Design and Technology, and learning design is also we also use instructional design as a term. So, instructional design is the process by which learning products and learning experiences are designed, developed, and delivered. So, these learning products could be, books, courses, full courses, programs, online courses, instructional textbooks, video tutorials, learning software, games or simulations. All these are things that are designed by instructional designers. So if you can say, instructional designers are, the designers and architects of learning experience. So given that, these MOOCs are really growing in numbers and the variety of topics are available, we really saw a lot of the hard sciences not really thinking about how to design these instructions. And it really would just kind of dump material into the online discussion forum or into files and as file format, and the students would have to kind of figure it out on their own how to learn this material. So the research really shows a lack of sound instructional design for MOOCs with limited research in the effectiveness and how these instructors who are teaching thousands and thousands of students, how do they differ from face-to-face courses or online courses that have 20 or 30 students? And the experiences of the learners as well, and what they see in the course, and where there is very little personalization or individualized attention for them. So this really, this presentation will try to focus on the social justice advocates who have used these massive open online courses to promote attitude change at a global scale. And I'll talk about a few cases that we've looked at. So attitudes, let's talk a little bit about attitudes before we go into the cases. Attitudes are considered a critical objective within many school contexts and business contexts. It entails an evaluation, right? Whether positive or negative, and varies accordingly to different individuals, influencing their behavior, what they do, what they believe in, and how they feel about a certain topic or a certain subject. Positive attitude change benefits learners, like we can think about, in industry, society, by fostering desired attitudes and social responsibilities, just like, we do for our children every single day, such as promoting healthier citizens, using responsible use of alcohol or tobacco, all these different things. However, it is interesting that while promoting desired attitudes have been increasingly emphasized in educational systems and business contexts, the research has largely relegated attitude to a sub-learning objective rather than an actual core objective that we really think about and explicitly strive for. Many psychologists have defined attitude in various perceptions and terminologies, but many, during the last few decades, that we have come to an agreement that attitude is a psychological evaluation about a certain object. And it is generally considered that attitudes have three components, which is cognitive, affective, and behavioral. This is very because this is also, learning educators, when they design learning, that's also how they separate domains of learning as well. So let's take a look at the components of attitude. There's cognitive, affective, and behavioral. So for an attitude, for a person to have a stable and safe attitude, these three components need to be very well balanced with each other. They have to be consistent with each other, and then they have to be very well balanced. The fluctuation of the balance is what makes the attitude unstable and weak. So we'll talk about some examples. So when I say the fluctuation of balance that makes the attitude unstable and weak, it means that actually, if you introduce an instability, right, dissonance, then that is when the attitude could change, right? So the process of attitude change capitalizes on this need for balance, addressing the dissonance and unstable fluctuation of the three components. So in other words, people change attitudes through the process of reducing the instability, reducing the dissonance of each component, if that makes sense. So let's take an example of perceiving, the severity of a refugee crisis, right? So, the positive attitude change that we're trying to have here is understanding the severity of refugee crisis. And the cognitive would be that you read an article about the refugee crisis on CNN or, whatever it might be, or New York Times. The affective, attitude component will be you're feeling sympathy for the refugees. You feel bad for them. You feel like you want you want to comfort them. The behavior is that, you can't do something right away. So you might donate money to the refugee agency, or you might talk to some people in your school saying, we should run an article about, whatever, and suggesting something like that. So, the cognitive, getting information, knowledge, like that, and feeling how you feel about these refugees, and versus how I'm going to make action towards that attitude are the three different components of an attitude. So this is, I say, this is what kind of behavior that I would like to foster in my students, right? And in order to create that, all three components, cognitive, affective, and behavior, have to be well balanced and consistent with each other. So, with that background, some of our initial research on cases utilized instructor and student interviews. We analyzed course materials and non-validated student surveys to examine instructional approaches and perceived efficacy for a variety of different topics. One was human trafficking. This was offered out of Ohio State University, where the social work professor created a MOOC on, fighting global human trafficking. There was another course on animal behavior and welfare. This was out of Edinburgh University, where they had a really prestigious animal masters program. They created a really, really amazing MOOC on how to promote animal welfare in a global scale. Another one we did was a MOOC for journalism. So this professor created a MOOC on journalism, doing journalism for social change, talking about, using um, child abuse and different things that he had used for advocating for social justice through journalism. And another one was out of Berkeley. They were doing a MOOCs on science of happiness, which I think this is still actually available for you to take right now. But it's really talking about the science behind happiness research that has exploded during the last decade, and really gives you, do you want to be happy? If you want to, these are some strategies, and this is what the key to happiness is, right? So these are the initial case studies that we did on how MOOCs work and how these MOOCs are designed and what the results and effects were. So a lot of these different uh, classes that we explored, we had a lot of different questions that we could ask. We looked at how the students' perceptions on their learning or the course compared to their actual grades, which, even with MOOC grades, there are all sorts of different types of students who are looking for different things. So the grades mean different things to different students, right? We also looked at a variety of student profiles within the MOOCs. Like I said, different students come into MOOCs for different reasons, right? One student might come in because they actually need a certificate to say, look, I did professional development here. I paid the $30. I'm going to get this, legal certificate, and I'm going to show that I did the work, I got a good grade, and I need to do this. Or some people might say, I'm just I need something new to do. I'm really bored. I have always been interested in animal welfare or happiness research. So why not just take it? So this person might not really need to do all the assignments to really get a grade, right? Because this person is not really doing it for a certificate, or they don't really need to show a grade to anybody, but they're internally motivated. So they might just look at the materials, look at the videos, look at the readings, and really think and do a lot of reflection, but they might not actually deliver assignments or do quizzes, right? That are required for people who are wanting a grade or who are wanting a certificate. So we looked for a different variety of student profiles within MOOCs, and there were a lot of different, types of students who wanted different things. Also, we looked at specific aspects within the course, such as different activities, different assessments, different learning materials that were given to use for the students, and how the students were facilitating their learning. We also looked at how the instructor facilitated the course, or how involved the instructors were in the course. And if, because a lot of the times the students would be interacting with, teaching assistants who are supporting the course, because some of these MOOCs have tens of thousands of students. And obviously it's not something that they can all really participate in a personal level. Sometimes the instructor would design the MOOC and would be completely absent. Or sometimes, like in the human trafficking MOOC, she would be completely absent. She would be completely present. And she would be responding to all these students' emails and talking with them. And she said that it was the hardest thing that she's ever done in her entire life, and she has 7 adopted children. So, it was really something that was a difficult thing for her, that she cares about global human trafficking. She wants to fight it, and she created this course, but it was the hardest thing that she ever did. That's what she told us. Another insight that we through looking at these initial cases was that we had thought that, maybe one reason attitude or attitudinal learning may not be a common element in educational research is because it's so difficult to measure it, right? So we collaborated with a scale development expert in psychology at Purdue and developed the Ali scale, the Attitudinal Learning Inventory Scale, a general self-report instrument allowing for comparison with topic-specific inventory. So when we say, okay, how much do you believe that health and nutrition is, makes a big difference in you and your life, those type of subject or topic specific inventories, you can use it with those, or you can use different courses to compare the different instructional effectiveness or instructional results of these courses as well through the use of Ali. So using across topics and focusing on the efficacy of instructional design for attitudinal learning was another reason why we said, okay, something like Ali might be very, very helpful for us to explicitly understand that, attitudinal learning is really a part of education and learning, and it's something that we can be more explicit and cognizant about, providing a very fair way to have students grow in their attitude in a positive way. So the Ali items, if you take a look, you'll see that there are 4 CL items. Those are cognitive learning right here. And then the next 3, you will see AL. Those are affective learning. And then the third category is BL, which is behavioral learning. And then the 4th category that we added through our initial cases was social learning. So we learned that through looking at cognitive, affective, and behavioral learning, that the social learning part really made a big difference in solidifying these learning results. So we added the social learning component, but if you take a look at it, the cognitive one says, it provided me with new information, it made me more knowledgeable, I picked up new ideas from the course, I learned new information. Attitudinal learning talks about, the excitement about the topic, feeling eager to learn more about the topic, I feel passionate. Behavioral learning talks about, I did something different, right? In relation to this topic, my behaviors change. I do things differently now as a result of this course. Social learning talks about how their behavior changed in terms of social. So I talk to others about this topic. I educate others about this topic. I am confident discussing this topic with others, and I connect with other people regarding this topic as well. So, I would be very, very happy to share all the articles that we've written regarding these cases, but basically, even like in the human trafficking course or animal behavior course or science of happiness course, people would not just learn new information and new science information, they would have certain feelings about how they feel about this topic. And they actually did different things, to different levels and to degrees. And then they would actually really seek out a network of people who they could talk about or do something with about this topic. For example, in the human trafficking course, people would network through Facebook. They created a new Facebook group. They decided that they were going to work on different projects. On a certain day, they're going to go to different hotels where a lot of the sex trafficking or human trafficking work happens and put up a ton of flyers. So they would pick days and events and projects they would work on together. The Science of Happiness course, people would create a group together and they would share what they are grateful for that day or some pictures showing and focusing on what they had learned from the MOOC, and even after taking the course, they would continue to create that network to continue that learning that they had created. So we then expanded after we created the Ali inventory. We expanded the cases to include face-to-face courses large enough to support the use of our inventory. We examined cultural and language learning. We looked at sustainability in engineering and sustainability for high school, middle school students in India. We looked at international economics. We looked at many different courses. So initial insights that we got from these cases and other cases that we looked at after validating our inventory. So we saw that instructional designers and instructors approached attitudinal learning very differently, sometimes actually in very contrary ways. Very neutral and empirical focused rationality of the animal behavior and welfare course. Very different approaches and feel of the courses were used for attitudinal learning in different courses. The courses with greater support obviously could do much more with attitudinal learning, such as having an instructional team to facilitate the more in-depth discussions, and having professional people give professional feedback in animal behavior and welfare, and the very rich and small group activities that happen within the face-to-face sustainability course in undergrad courses or game-based sustainability learning in middle school in India. So these courses had greater impact, particularly in affective and behavioral learning, whereas the cognitive learning didn't change a whole lot in terms of their result when it was less rich and less personal of an experience. The MOOC students, it was interesting to see that the MOOC students mostly expected to learn from videos. They really preferred videos, saying, oh, I love to watch the instructors, talk on videos. But cases show that it really didn't mean that the videos were actually something that the students really did prefer after using them. But any type of learning experience, if it was having support, it was very impactful. So, dialogue and discussion within forums, which you might think that might not be powerful, was very powerful when they had a facilitator helping them think about these different ideas and questions, even within this course that had tens of thousands of students, which was very surprising to us. The students really reported that it had changed their minds and it had made them solidify what they had thought about in the past. This can also create a network of people who are interested in a certain topic to communicate and collaborate beyond the courses, like I said earlier. The strengths of the platform can also be its weakness. Again, there are difficulties. So for example, the human trafficking course really did not have much support. It was really one teacher, one professor really driving the whole thing with no teaching assistance, with no administrative support. It was very hard for her to connect in a personal way or discuss the difficult topics with students in a meaningful way, because there were too many people for her to talk to. Whereas the animal behavior welfare, they had 8 different professors working together to facilitate different discussions and topics, and that would be very, very supportive for each other as well as students. When comparing topics, the courses that we examined that focus more on attitude change and social topics generally adhered more to instructional design principles than the MOOCs in hard sciences and computers. So I don't know exactly how this happened, but really a lot of the hard sciences, computer sciences did not provide a lot of scaffolding and support to the students, but more of the social topics in the MOOCs did provide a lot more support to the students in instructional design. Talking about instructional design principles, another topic that we worked on is the first principles of attitudinal learning instructional design. So these were identified by our group, that focus on attitudinal learning. And it was based on Merrill's first principles of instructional design, which is like the Bible of, what makes good instruction good, right? So based on that, if I'm going to show you this really quick, these are the five in the diagram. Those are the five principles of instructional design. It has to be task-centered. It needs to be, previous knowledge has to be activated. You need to provide demonstration. You need to integrate the different types of knowledge and reflection that you might have. And then you have to apply the things that you've learned. So based on these, we said, okay, these are the things that we need to think about when we are specifically focusing on attitudinal learning. So, in the bullet points, you will see that, we have to create awareness and model behavior. We create, role playing, promoting empathy, create peer collaboration critique so you can reflect on it both personally and socially, and present different situations where the student is kind of put into a task and into an active situation where they're required to kind of have some fluctuation in their attitudes. So they create dissonance in their attitudes and therefore be more vulnerable to rethink what they think and what they really believe in. All three components of learners' existing attitudes that they already have. Construct learning demonstrations focused on persuasive messaging and modeling of the targeted behavior. We create both appropriate learning environments and exercises like role playing and critique, so they can apply and practice potential new behavior and new attitude, and continue to identify, where the learner is in terms of adopting a new attitude. Another important point that I'd like to stress is that, looking at all the attitudinal learning happened, in education and psychology, we really thought the fourth dimension of attitudinal learning was very, very important, which is social learning, right? So the social learning aspect is reflected in the OLLI survey items, and it was implemented through the OLLI for all the different cases that we explored after we had created our OLLI. In more exploration of the social learning for attitude change is very, very important, especially in this age of social media, use of how we keep looking for validation of what, if our attitudes or if our beliefs are true or correct or, just, right? Or even fair in this world that we live in. Also, the use of OLLI as a metacognitive debrief tool is also very important. Thinking about what I've learned during the week or during the month or during the semester, what has it done, not just in terms of what was, stated in the syllabus in terms of cognitive and behavioral things, but also, really if you really think about it as a positive attitude forming, as a student, what have I learned and what kind of attitudes have I formed on this topic or on this subject? It is something that you really want to think about as a metacognitive tool, thinking about, what is it? Let me look at my learning and brain and my perspective and worldview in a more objective manner and kind of have a kind of good assessment on it. Not only students can use it on their own, but the teachers as well, instructors as well, can use this as a tool at the end of the semester or after they discuss a really, really important topic that has an attitude change or attitudinal learning component, they can use this as a debrief tool to talk things through with the students. Um, Again, I have students who use these in museum settings or different online course settings, considering both, not just formal, like in schools or higher education, but also informal learning settings like, different, state fairs and museums, exhibitions, as well as different face-to-face and online courses really need to be done to further understand attitudinal learning and instruction better. So not can we only just understand what is happening, but also in the future, how can we design instruction to be more fair and really thought-provoking for the students and us to have a more stable attitude and a positive attitude that benefits us and society. Traits, for example, openness to new experiences. Will that make a person to be more, open to attitudinal learning or not? Does that have an impact? If not, why does it not? We would like to kind of explore those things as well as what we've talked about in the previous slides, where we do want to continue to look at what is it that we can do within the different contexts, face-to-face, online, small groups or big groups, informal settings like exhibitions or museums. How can we really target attitudinal learning outcomes, both as overarching goals or sub goals or very explicit goals? What can we do to make it not really a hidden or, following along type of result of learning, but also something that we are explicitly thinking about and mindful about. We want to find ways that we can help instructional designers and instructors be able to use these types of instructional strategies and instructional methods to better design attitudinal learning in a better way. My email is right here. If you have any comments or questions, you can ask now or you can ask later. But, I would also be very happy to, share any of these projects and papers. You can also, they're all available through Purdue library. So you can always just look for Sunnie Lee Watson, and then you'll see all the papers there as well.